built this platform.
This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command-grade truth. Let's begin.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to New Room Collective. Today is June 6th at 10:08 a.m. PST. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I can't complain. If I did, who would really listen?
We hope the people watching.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just
right?
there was a second delay for a minute. You froze like in the middle of your sentence. I don't know if it's the streaming software.
Or it could be like Chips, like back in the 80s, they used to just smile and like kind of be like that, pause.
That's a good one. That's a good reference, but we really date ourselves if you know that show.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I know sometimes we ham and egg it, brother. I just like to always keep it a buck.
Well, as you said in the intro, coming with the command grade truth, nothing else.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad, like we're talking about that kind of stuff, because what's happening is a lot of old school marketing tactics are still trying to make their way in this new world that we have here. And the craziest thing about it is one of them popped up on my desk. And, I usually don't like to talk about stuff. I just like to mind my own business and do my own thing. But it's pretty significant to know that some of the tactics that literally have like the alphabet crew and, like the IRS and the FCC, these things are FTC, should I say, these things are still popping up left and right on feeds. And I'm not here to blame anybody or make anybody feel guilty. My whole goal for what we do is to just shed some light on what's currently working and what's not working, but more specifically, be able to actually say, hey, there's another alternative to people who don't like to market or advertise a certain way. So I want to get your thoughts on that before I start rolling a little bit more on that, because I know we've been working through PDOCS and Audience Lab and a few other things that we've done together. So what's your take on the whole way that the whole industry's going so far?
I mean, it's always good to keep your finger on the pulse 100%. I think you're right. Like a lot of people are kind of oblivious. I mean, might be the right word for it in terms of what's really going on and how commonplace some of this stuff is. I think a lot of people think this can never happen to me or it's one in a million when it comes to some of those, alphabet, agencies that can come after you, specifically FTC, but there's definitely other ones. There's definitely other ones that we see. Usually there's multiple. Usually when one gets involved, then another, and then another starts looking into things. So it starts to domino and snowball to an extent. And then what you said, just in summation there toward the end, very clearly, I mean, that's what we always try to do. And that's what you and I have a great ability to do, is what you said about, show you what's working. And I like to say, more importantly, help you avoid what's not working, because you and I have been through the pitfalls. We've been through the ups and downs, and we're like, oh, disqualify this. 5 people told me this work. I've tested it. It's not working for me, right? Shelve it. Yeah. So we can kind of shorten that learning curve. And I think that's what I've noticed where a lot of people struggle, maybe even quit, is they're just like, man, I've tried everything Guru A told me and it's just not working for me. And they just throw their hands up and quit. Rather than sometimes if they just had a shortened learning curve and saw some results right away, or saw something that really felt authentic and they're like, oh, this actually feels genuine when I'm doing it, and they're seeing results and getting in conversations, all of a sudden that starts to snowball into positive effects. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on what you had just, brought up there.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to say I'm in 100% alignment with that as well. I mean, I don't consider myself the guru online, definitely, when it comes to certain things. But what I can tell you is, from a compliance standpoint, me working in the automotive game for over 20 years, doing that one thing from a super high level, helping out with some other things that were innovative as well as online as well. My biggest concern is when people are really trying to invest their hard-earned dollars into the ads or the end user of the said product. Sometimes you have that third party in between, which is the agency. So that's why I said this isn't a finger pointing in as much as, hey, let's just go over the mechanics of it. But anybody can go at this point in time into the Facebook ads library on this planet and just really see what's out there. Facebook has done their best to be super transparent about that. And as a matter of fact, they're even trying to, in certain cases, make it go away because Zuckerberg wants to take over. I'd be curious to see if that'll actually happen, as far as ads actually just being dominated just by like AI in themselves? I don't think so, because there's a high level of creativity that you have to have. And at the end of the day, we have to remember that somebody created AI, like somebody is creating the ad creative. So the question to me becomes, from a communications viewpoint, how do we all figure out how we can all get what we want? Not everybody wants to be a creator. Not everybody wants to be a consumer. Not everybody wants to be somebody who's just caught in the middle of this crossfire. But this is such an attention deficit issue that we have, that it's literally causing trust issues online, which is the reasons why I do kind of want to go over this, just because I want to show people exactly how an ad runs. Like, for example, like we talk about workhorse ads, right? So when you know how a workhorse ad works, you can understand then, even if you aren't advertising right now, even if you're doing organic marketing, like how powerful what we're about to show you today really is. Because at the end of the day, what matters is trust. Or you think I'm off on that one?
No, I mean, that's certainly what matters at the end of the day. Yeah, 100%. I mean, what you were saying, I don't consider myself a guru either, but I do now refer to myself, even kind of hesitantly, because I don't like to talk about myself. I like my results and my clients to do the talking, but I have to consider myself an expert in the areas now, after you get told over and over again by so many people. And once you see the results of, what you implement, or more importantly, what your clients implement to their business and see results. And you said another thing about the ads library and it being out there, and for us all to break down and deconstruct. But still, I bet you only about 20 or 25% of us actually do that. Maybe it's even lower than that out of us so-called, coaches and agencies and creators and speakers. Like, how many of us actually do the deep dive research? How many of us have actually went into Facebook ads library and looked at our competitors' ads, and look in the mirror and ask yourself that honestly? I can tell you from experience that number's probably around 25%. And you were the other thing you were talking about there is, like, not everybody wants to be a creator or a coach or a whatever, right? But what you do have to figure out is what you do want to be and what you're good at and what you enjoy, right? And then how do I maximize that into a career, into income, into earnings, where I can be having fun, be enjoying it, be challenging myself, all the things that I feel like, working in the roles that I work in on a daily or weekly basis.
Yeah, 100%. And we do have some people in the studio. If you want to come through, just raise your hand, let me know, and we'll put you on live with us. If you want to go over some creative, let us know. If you just want to hang out in the background, not a problem. Me and Ray are actually running New Room live from 10 a.m. roughly ish PST to no later than noon, because as we're super busy professionals as well. We run an agency together. And also some breaking news, Ray, I'll probably bring back the actual newsletter that we used to have. So I'm working on some, because this whole thing with, it's one of those things when you have something, you don't realize exactly like how good you are at it until people are just like, hey, you're really good at this. And I'm like, well, I didn't know. It's kind of like saying, hey, a fish can swim, right? I want to be known for one thing, and somebody else wants to know me for something else. And it's just like, okay, cool. But my whole point is, New Room is a very practical, functional advertising and media. Like, we want to bring advertising, marketing, and media together, because there's a lot of things out here that require all three of them working harmoniously. And if you get the messaging wrong, then none of it really matters. So that's why I was saying it doesn't matter whether me and Ray are talking about online stuff or offline stuff, or whether it's organic marketing or paid traffic, right? To me, it's all communication, and it's all in how that signal flows from what you want to have happen to what that person on the end of the communication wants to receive as well. So we have a few people popping up. Did you guys want to pop through and do some case studies or some hardcore stuff? You just want to say hi? It's up to you. You want to bring you on? Raise your hand. If not, then me and Ray, I want to go into this case study that we definitely saw the other day. And Ray, before I pull it up, what were your thoughts on it? I know you had a chance to just look at it briefly because you're always running. So
yeah, I mean, I literally just got to it 10 minutes before we lined up for this. So I just gave it a quick little overview. I mean, I'd rather just break it down as we go through it. And okay. I'm pretty sure we're going to bring it up and share it on the screen so everybody can see, right?
Cool. Yeah, let's do that real quick.
Better do my thoughts when it's right there in front of me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. So this ad actually came to me from one of the people in New Room Collective, and it's what's known in the online marketing space. I've never heard anybody say it before. I've been waiting for some gurus to let me know what they call it, but what it's officially called is performative messaging. So again, just to give you a small disclaimer, this isn't designed to really dig on the advertisers who do this, because what happens is sometimes there's a difference between having a knowing problem and a doing problem. And usually when we're out here marketing and hustling, like, we don't realize there's certain things that have shifted or changed in the whole advertising and marketing world in general. But when you're starting to play with a lot of ad spend, like one client, Ray, me and you had, I don't know if you remember him, it was literally $100,000 a day in ad spend, right? And then in some of our offers, we were spending $5,000 to $7,000 a day. So when you start getting to that kind of ad spend, you become really visible. So when I start looking at the sophistication of this one ad, it's neither good nor bad. What I want to break down are some of the mechanisms that I've been trained to see, and that way you can use them and analyze them and actually test them for yourself, see if they're going to work in your personal and professional world. Because to me, you know, first of all, business isn't business, business is people. Because some of my best friends they were my clients first, and just through time you just develop, you know, strong relationships. So I'm more of a relationship type person, not necessarily a transactional type person, because there are two separate types. But this is what's called performative messaging. It's AKA the yo bro Lambo kind of messaging, where, hey, you know, we talked to 37 clients last month and made $100,000. Is that something you want? Click the link below to learn more. Now, there's a lot of dissension among those words from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
But obviously the Facebook ads library still says yes. You know, it's going to be up to you to do your due diligence before you push that button as a media buyer to say, I want this to launch out there. So that's the viewpoint that I want to take, because I'm more of an academic. I love to do science and research, and I'm into copy science and stuff like that. And Ray is also big on words as well. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Ray, as far as what you see, brother.
I mean, I don't have too much to add in addition to yours. I mean, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. Like you said, Facebook ads library allowed it, and it got posted, or it got published, and it's there running, and it hit your feed and all that stuff. But I would be worried a little about the legality of this one as well.
Yeah, 100%. So because it's one of those things.
I like your we're going to get into that in a minute, but also your breakdown of the emotional aspect. And yeah, I mean, we can go a little more line by line to each thing. I didn't want to dive into that quite yet, but I think that's the main glaring thing that I look at, is like the legality of it's the first thing I see when I see it.
Yeah, me too. And I think this person probably had legitimately good intentions, because most of us do. But again, it's still, to me, emotional bait wrapped in hype, because there's a difference between ethically pushing buttons and just using what you've known before. Like full disclaimer for me, yes, I use AI. I'm actually one of the very few people on this planet who uses AI so well, to the point where AI doesn't even recognize that I'm using AI. Like, it's totally insane. But you know, I was exposed to AI a long time ago, even in the military. So this isn't new for me. What is new, though, is watching how people are trying to use AI, or they're trying to do ads like this, where you don't know where that person's sophistications level is. You don't know where the team level is. And again, it's probably for a nice high ticket offer, because I had a chance to really check out the funnel. I didn't opt into anything, because I already know how that game is played. But the reality of it is, this kind of stuff right here is what you have to watch out for as a media buyer and as the person who runs a company. Because this right here, I mean, it's just like, it's so many things that when I looked at it, I literally have a scoring mechanism where I can just analyze ads to see exactly what the secret sauce looks like. So I wanted to break that down as well. So in this one particular case, he says a marketer, it's like 581,600. It's a precise number, which is cool. But you have to be very careful as far as like when you're giving exact numbers online these days, because it's from an FTC viewpoint. It's like playing poker. You know how it is, Ray. When somebody shows you the cards, it's like show one, show all. It's not a statistic that's sustainable for the whole. If he has like or he or she or the company has 4,000 clients, then do 4,000 clients have that exact same result? That's literally how the FTC looks at this kind of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that we have a real good eyeball on that lesson. Is there anything you want to add to that, Ray?
No, I mean, just to kind of specify on that a little more, I would say, yeah, if you're going to make, revenue claims in certain contexts, you want to make them more general and not specified, because once they're specified, more general and on average, hey, within our last 20 clients, at least 25% saw a result of around XYZ or similar to. So very, very careful. But yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's a good thing to point out. The more specific you get with the number, the more it can get dialed in on and scrutinized.
Yeah.
For one, I think some people think, oh my God, that looks a lot more authentic than just saying, hey, over 500,000 or whatever, 500 million, whatever the number is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the other thing too, is that like whenever you're starting to do ad creative, we have to really begin with the end in mind. And if you're just saying that you want money, then guess what? You're going to be at the bottom of the barrel with the new level of sophistication of clients. Everybody wants money. It's the reasons why they're running ads. But the interesting thing about it, though, is that when you're running ads on Facebook, it's what's called interruptive marketing, because most people aren't really looking to buy things on Facebook. It's more of a distraction. So, you might be scrolling for cat memes, and all of a sudden you see an ad that matches maybe cats or something like that, right? So we have to look at things from a very high level before we even push that button, because he could be converting, it could be working, don't know. The whole purpose of this exercise is to, one, raise your awareness so that you're able to see exactly what comes in your feed. Because let's just say this offers $5,000, right? Let's just say it's $5,000. I have worked with over 4,000 online agencies who we've coached up. And it's almost like a gamble when you say, hey, you know what? I need to spend this last amount of money or I'm going to go broke. You follow me? So that's, to me, almost like for people who are very desperate for money, who this would attract. So that's just my personal thought on it, Ray. What's yours?
I mean, I think it brings up a lot of buyer skepticism right off the bat, a lot of too good to be trues. We've all heard the phrase probably since we were little kids, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right? And I think that's the first thought. Now, again, very contingent upon the sophistication level of the audience he's trying to reach. If he's trying to reach those dreamers that kind of believe everything and are more in the gullible market, which I'm never trying to target, but we all know certain people are, this might be converting, like you said. To somebody like myself, I wouldn't take two looks at it. I would scroll right by it and kind of laugh, right? You know what I mean? So it's really who they going after, number one. And then, as breaking it down here, I mean, how good did you do making it exactly what you titled it? I mean, it's really good. Emotional bait wrapped in hype, right? Like, for me, it didn't tap into any emotions. It didn't do that for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I appreciate that, brother. It's interesting you say that, because like I said, this one didn't show up on my feed. I get a lot of high level marketing and advertising ads from other advertisers and marketers, because most of them are my friends. I've been in the industry since it was born. I've been in an industry before it was born, quite frankly, from a military viewpoint. So that's the reasons why I use a lot of love and discernment as far as like the way that I'm breaking this down, because I don't think that this person did it on purpose. Like, they aren't trying to intentionally, like, maybe it's like monkey see, monkey do. And it's one of the reasons why New Room is out here, is because if you have a legitimate concern about your marketing and advertising, that's the reasons why me and Ray are here. Like, we can't be behind the curtain anymore. And I can't see this knowing for a fact that it's affecting people personally and professionally. The person who probably did this, they may have their own software, they may have their own goods for real. They may not know any better, but they're talking to a lower sophisticated market, because my friends don't get this. It's just like, I don't know anybody who would get this, like, straight up, like, because our feeds are like, hey, bro, come through. I'm running an ad. I don't have time to talk, but this is what we've got going on. Like, that's the way it really goes at that level. So, my challenge to anybody who's still on, to me, this is more of a consumer ad. It's more like B2C kind of sophistication. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I would agree with that. I would agree. There's just not much to add to that one. I mean, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So that's all. I really wanted to break it down from that viewpoint. And then looking at it, again, you're supposed to read and think, wait, what am I doing wrong? Because when I do see those kind of ads, it reminds me of like a boiler room type network marketing FOMO kind of thing. Like, you go into this room and you see usually the speaker dressing really, really nice, and they have the nice car parked outside. This is usually offline. So when you walk in, everything looks perfect. People greet you and everybody's dressed and they got their nice watches and stuff like that. Those days, at least from the people who I'm talking to, well, for the people who I know, it never existed in the first place because they're like truly high level professionals. But we're talking about, to your point, Ray, I want to land with that one really, really carefully. But I think this is for a more unsophisticated audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was my exact point, my exact thought too, 100%. And you're right. Once you were talking about it, I was like, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, stuff like that might hit my feed, but it's been a while. I don't get hit with stuff like that either. And I would just kind of chuckle and scroll by and be like, who wasted their money on this stuff?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what my thought is when I see this stuff.
Yeah, no, real talk, bro, real talk. But that's the whole thing about it, though, is that because here's another thing. The reasons why New Room is set up the way that it is because when me and Ray were watching the market sophistication, what we observed was I was getting ads like this, to your point, about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but also there weren't like another 20 million people who just came online. Like when the pandemic hit is when this whole influx of people came who weren't really aware of not only how to market, but how to advertise. So I was watching very sophisticated groups all of a sudden getting bombarded with people who weren't industry professionals, or they were tired of getting ripped off from agencies, right? So I started seeing this melding of people. It's almost like in the car business, because I told you I sold cars for a long time, but it's like when these guys would get screwed over, then they'd say, hey, tell my friend. And then the next thing you know, it's like this daisy chain effect, and you think people would want to help each other out. But here's the distinction between this room and everybody else's. It's literally a collaborative in this room. We want to be able to share knowledge and information like this gently, because again, there was a lot of effort involved. If you know how to push buttons to become a media buyer, it's a lot involved to do that. Like, it's a lot of work just to, like, for example, when I was learning how to do funnels, there's literally 147 steps to do perfectly just before you even think about running a funnel from the technical side. I'm not even talking about the creative side, right? So we have to think about these things, and then we also have to think about the end user of this, because so as it begins, so as it ends. Do I really want this person in my funnel? Do I really want this person to have my offer? Will they charge back because they didn't get exactly what they thought that they were going to get? Or did I convolute it in conversation? That's the messaging issue that I'm seeing here, Ray, from a very high level.
No, I mean, that's pretty spot on. I mean, and you were saying something earlier, like you don't think that he did this intentionally or maliciously, right? It's just more of like the monkey see, monkey do. And really, you're probably right in this case. I mean, we all know there are people that do some grimy and less than ethical tactics when advertising, creating copy, and etc. But I don't think that's a majority of people, and I don't think that's a majority of people's intent. But I think there's a certain percentage of that. But what I will say is when it comes to like these people that probably don't know better, the monkey see, monkey do, that's probably about 85% of the market right now when it comes to, how people are running their ads and their copy. They're just copy and pasting something, something that's not really them or authentic. And then they get people like us breaking down their ad and talking about it. Now it's a waste of money. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I'm saying, if you want to run ads like this, then definitely have a huge war chest, because it's going to, all it takes is the right person to see this, and it's going to cost you. And this is actually a true story. I'm not going to mention the brand, but one time when I don't know if they're still around, the CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Board, they were literally coming down the 405. It was for one of the companies that I was working with, an automotive game, and they were charging people tens of millions of dollars just for like false advertising and all this other stuff. So all of a sudden they come to us, and one of the presidents is like, what do we do? I'm just like, get your checkbook out. It's the cost of doing business at that level. But at this level, it can break you, and it can break everything that you've worked hard for. And I don't want to see that, because I know what it's like to bootstrap. I know what it's like to have a huge bankroll. I know what it's like to start out with multiple 6 figures. I know what it's like to start out with multiple 9 figures, right? It's the same problem on all levels. Your message has to be spot on and extremely relevant, especially with the ads today. Because I think I mentioned it a few months back, like just in wasted ad spend alone, we're talking about almost $600 billion. That's not, I don't even think that's including video ads. I got to do a little bit more deeper research on that, but it's just a ridiculous number.
Yeah. In addition to what you led off with, if you want to run ads like this, also don't reach out to Fred and I to work with us, because we're not going to be involved with helping anybody create ads like this.
No, no,
If
no,
anything, we're going to
no,
steer you in
no.
the exact opposite direction. Well, not exact opposite, because if it's converting, ours is going to convert. That would be the only similarity.
Bro, I'm moving in a different direction. I promise you. I'm not that guy when it comes to this. Yeah,
No,
100%.
but I mean, it totally all comes down to the messaging and what we've talked about and alluded to a couple times throughout the conversation with like AI, and will AI ever be, or is it now? Especially, I think the answer is no for now. I still don't know if it'll ever be the end all be all for creative. I still think you need that human element, like you said. Something created AI to start, right? And as good as it's gotten, is so much AI in the last 6 months to a year has blown my mind in terms of what's possible, but it still can't do what I can do. Matter of fact, talking about like AI as a whole, the number one probably most used tool by you, myself, most of the people that would be watching this would be Chat GPT, most likely in terms of AI, especially in our space, in our circle. So I saw a post the other day from a past client of mine, very bright dude, very good creative. He's made well over 6 figures, maybe even $1 million since starting working with me. He made a post the other day about how Chat GPT leaves a watermark that most people don't know of. So people can actually tell when your content's being created if they really want to. It's very technical, but they can. And people never knew that. And my comment under that was, I said, I've never used Chat GPT once to create one single piece of content. No worries here. And I was the only one in the comments. Everyone was like, how? Show me. They're all worried and panicking, like people are going to know. I was like, and he hearted my comment. And he like knew I was the only one that had anything like that. And it's true. I literally have not posted one piece of content that was just Chat GPT made. I've used I don't even use GPT. I use a different version, a different provider, but I use it for structure or to give me outlines or thoughts or direction or to correct what I'm doing, but it never creates my content. Yeah. And especially if you guys have ever, like this conversation could not happen through AI.
Yeah.
Not now, at least. And I don't think ever. It'd really blow my mind if it could.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. I don't think so either. And just for the record, I use AI a lot. And the reasons why is because I know how to use it. I'm a very masterful prompt engineer. And in full disclosure, when I'm actually even working with my clients, I use it as well. Because for me, when it comes from high volume, but high quality, that's the key. It's almost the difference between like getting polyester at Walmart versus polyester at Neiman Marcus. Because like I started off the conversation earlier, Ray, I'm so good with it that like even when I run it through the AI scanners, then in most cases, at least the way that I'm using it, it's like, no, because what I did first was I trained my chat specifically for my voice. And I already knew my voice was distinct when I first came into the online marketing space. So that was the first thing. Now the only thing I've done is just turbocharged it. And now it writes just like me. So I'm still the editor of it. I just look at it as like, hey, and this really helps out with conversions as well. But if it's like a real professional article, I do say this has been enhanced by AI. I do that because it is something that people should know. But also from an advertising viewpoint, I know how to use it. So why wouldn't I use that tool? But I'm old school.
I think very few, if anyone else I know, knows how to use it at the level you do, though. You know what I mean? I don't think that's applicable to most everybody, most anybody, I should say.
Yeah, I actually score really high to the point where even Meta invited me over to another. Sometimes when I just do stuff, all of a sudden I just start getting all these messages. But yeah, I'm working on. I just got one yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess my point in saying that, guys, is that me and Ray are old school. It's no differently than like reading a book by the fireplace and the fire is going and it's a nice, warm, cool evening and you got your wine or whatever. But we're also, very high level George Jetson when it comes to chat. And I do use chat, just for the record. And the reasons why I like chat more than a lot of other things is simply because it's been around the longest, but also I can train it for more stuff than just maybe Claude or some other things. So that's a whole thing maybe we should do a little bit later. But I wanted to really get back into the case study here, because the reality of it is, though, anything that you're having a challenge with, this is the kind of stuff me and Ray handle, but it still starts with the messaging. It's garbage in, garbage out with anything that you're using. So if you're using AI, garbage in, garbage out. When I'm putting my stuff into, as a matter of fact, I will show you Ray, I'll probably put it in the group, the screen shares of what AI, who AI is comparing me to. And people go, oh, well, yeah, AI is designed to pump you and gas you up. I'm like, no, because even for some of the people who the gurus are looking to for like their models, whether it's Ogilvy or some of the other guys out there, I learned those styles when I was in the Marine Corps. Like, so when I first got into the online marketing space, I'm just like, I learned that like this is like commonplace for where we're at and what we do. So my point to you is, when you get the solid frameworks, whether you're running ads or whether you're doing organic marketing, it still starts with the words. It still starts with how they're organized so that you get the result, period. It doesn't matter. Like what Ray said, I don't think that chat or any type of AI is going to replace these kinds of conversations, especially with the kind of experience me and Ray have. Good luck on that, because we've worked with some of the world's top gurus online and offline. So when you're playing at that level, it's beyond Olympic level, because these guys are super smart, right?
100%.
Yeah. So let's go a little bit further down the line right here. As far as it says, I'm a marketer, I sell leads. Again, one of the tactics here is it's an identity shortcut. It just creates false accessibility. And to me, that is a real high level emotional trigger for the simplicity and the belonging, just because now this ad does have clarity as to exactly what it does. So I like how clean the offer is. This is what I do, right? The other part behind this mechanism, though, manipulation to me is neither good nor bad. It's just an influence level, because when you look at the dictionary definition of manipulation, that's what we're doing every single day. You know, if we're speaking to you and we're broadcasting, that's what we're trying to do. If we're running an ad, that's what we're trying to do. If you're going into an audience and you're saying, hey, my name is Fred Smith and this is what I do, that's what you're trying to do. So I think for the non-professional who wants to really grow, and they don't, especially with me and you, Ray, I think we should have one as far as sales goes. I love to sell. I love to close. Yeah. I love to talk to people. It's not manipulative to me, because I know why they're there in the first place. They want me to do something with them and for them. That's the reasons why I love ads so much, because when you look at ads, by definition, they're really salesmen in print. So if you don't get that part right, that means that your communication's off. So I do like the fact that it says, I'm a marketer, I sell leads.
Yeah. Very, very direct.
Yeah, 100%. Now the 1,500, 300. So what's the next one? 300. The $30 or $350 per lead. It's a value anchor with no real context, because it's like, for what? You know, what industry? What vertical? Is it just a random thing? You follow me? It's an arbitrary number. So.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. And then we can go down, and then, I mean, Ray, if we don't want to beat this up anymore, I'm good with it. If they want the case study, they can actually go into the group and we can go into a little bit more detail, but I'm pretty cool with what came out of this. What I really wanted to go into as well, as far as the emotional levers that were triggered: hope, fear, curiosity, shame, validation seeking. You know, these are the kind of things that, if you don't understand what your client acquisition cost is, you're going into what they call, to me, based on this ad, it's more for like a biz op, because biz op has this kind of format to it. And that's the reasons why the cost per acquisition is so high in that particular industry.
Yeah. And I'm just looking through the emotional triggers. So we got fear, curiosity, shame, validation seeking. Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Okay. So I'm going to take this off, but that's the whole thing though. It's just like, this is what we mean by the death of traditional advertising and marketing for 2025. That's just one ad. Now there's a whole bunch that get served up every single day, to the point where Facebook see ads doubling up and tripling up, like on the commercials on TV now. So when it comes to your messaging though, Ray, from a very high level, or even more into the detail, because you've also, started DM Setter Academy, what do you think people who are trying to even get to this level of, like, to be able to see behind the curtain, what do you think it's going to take for advertisers and marketers online?
Can you say that one more time? You cut out for 1 second there in the middle of your last question.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to say, based on what we're showing them and what we showed them today, what do you think it's going to take for like the next level of marketers and advertisers to see behind the curtain on this kind of stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know what it's going to take for all them to see. I think a lot of times what it takes failure, and it takes, going through the trenches and getting punched in the mouth a few times before you learn your lesson. And that's probably how most people are going to learn it, or they're going to work with people that already know the way around those pitfalls, steer around that learning curve. And what we talked about earlier, the type of people that we work with in our agency, with our sales stuff, with our, DM setter, those people circumvent the pitfalls and just get right into what's working. So you got to pick your poison. You take your lumps and you figure it out, and you waste some time and some money figuring it out, or you find somebody you totally trust and believe in and understand and align with, how they go about getting results for themselves and their clients, and you make an investment in yourself. I mean, those are the two ways you're going to figure it out. I mean, there's other little outliers, but that's the way 95% of people are figuring out one of those two. You just got to figure out which bucket you fall into. What I'll say, the other thing in terms of what people really need to figure out to be effective is within those ads we were breaking down, that one specifically, or, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, that hit my feed or that I've broken down. I would say the quicker people can stay around problems, solutions, and results / outcomes with a majority of their copy and their messaging, the more they're going to really hit and resonate with their market and hit their ideal audience. Now, which one of those kind of is contingent upon sophistication level. Lower sophistication level, I probably want to start with problem. Mid sophistication level, dive in solution. And more sophisticated, they're more worried about results or outcomes, not really the problem and solution stuff anymore. But I always have some combination, if not all three of those things, kind of mixed into my copy or my message, depending on its particular objective.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you on that. I want to go into something too that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to the messaging, and that is the real thought behind it. So for everybody who's watching this, me and Ray worked on a project called From Vision to Victory. And the whole challenge behind that, or the whole outcome of that, was to really get people who were stuck in their heads out in the world to see what really works. Because nothing irked me more than people spending a few $1 million on their back end stuff, but they haven't really thoroughly thought about the front end as far as how the creative should be. And you see it all the time, like people who have a limited bankroll, or maybe even a large company, or some of the ones that I've worked with before in the past where they got tens of millions of dollars, right? But they still don't get their messaging right. And yet they'll invest so much stuff into research and development of their product when you don't even know it's going to work. To me, that's a huge still epidemic in itself. But what I was curious about, Ray, was when you were actually helping us develop out From Vision to Victory, right? What were some of the key points that really stood out to you? Because we really never talked about it. But when I saw this ad, that's what really triggered that thought. Because for the mastermind stuff that we talked about doing, I want people to understand that when they walk to us, this is very well thought out. This isn't something that's been like ragtag. Because guys, I'm gonna keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. For me and Ray to be working together for so long, since 2019, it just doesn't happen online if you're new to it. I mean, there's a few people who tend to group up and they tend to still gatekeep a lot of the information. What I've observed though is that even from working with international audiences, is that there comes a time and place where we really have to really come together to say, okay, well, what's the new standard as far as what we want to accomplish online? So that was the whole breakthrough From Vision to Victory, because that was some of the technology we actually use for our audience lab. So I was curious on your thoughts on that.
Well, when I first got involved in that and really picked your brain on where Vision from Victory came from, what it delivers to, whoever we implement it with, the glaring things for me and my, my first aha moments within, working with you in that was, it's kind of self-explanatory, and I don't want it to sound too cliche, but really was understanding your vision. There's just a lot of people that go out there and do stuff every day with no vision behind it. And it really leads to unfulfilled or no results. But even if you do get results when you don't really have a vision, it comes back down to being really unfulfilled or unsatisfied with what you're doing. Matter of fact, again, we met last Friday. So again, we're meeting on Friday. So the night before each week, guys, on Thursday, I work with some private PDOCS students and clients. And one of my clients on yesterday, Sean, on the call, we were going over this, and it's just he needs to refine his vision and his why, and really ask himself. I mean, I put the pressure on him. I'm like, how much do you really want this, Sean? Like, how much is this a priority in your life to be successful with it? Do you just feel like you're going through the motions, like you picked up another job, or do you actually enjoy what you're doing still? Because you told me you did when you started. Now you just told me you want this revenue goal, but you don't really have any passion behind it. So like, you got to really think about it a little. And he really thanked myself and JP, who I think is on here now, was on the session last night, giving Sean some words of advice and wisdom and encouragement as well. But we're very straight with him. We're like, hey man, like, you got to ask yourself the hard questions. And that's the same with anybody watching this. Like, hey, what are my chances of being successful? You know what your chances are? Ask yourself, how bad do I really want it? And if you're at a 90% or higher, you're all in on yourself, right? And I always say 90% because, yeah, I mean 100%, but we always leave ourselves a safety net. I'm not saying mortgage, go broke, so you're going to lose your house over it. Don't go all into that extent. That's why I say 90%. Cover your bases and your cost of living expenses. But when you're ready to do it, you really got to go all in and be dedicated. And if you don't really want it that bad, all you want to do is make money, but there's no real more motivation behind that. Even if you do find some success and make money, it's going to fizzle out really quick, and you're just going to be back where you were. Feel like you're working for somebody else, even though you got your own thing going. And that all really wrapped in. And just to tie that into one more thing, I mean, everything we're talking about here today is messaging, guys. Last summer, Fred and I ran a live challenge where my PDOCS messaging mastery stuff came together, paired with everything he had really taught me, I should say, in terms of the vision to victory and the why part, and the and the understanding the bigger picture behind it. And that led to me becoming, getting back to like, wow, help me get my enjoyment back a little more. Not to say I was ever not fully enjoying, but we all go through, and me personally, I would like to think all of us, but I'll speak for myself. We all go through ruts where like, hey, this just isn't as fun as it used to be. Or, I feel like I'm just doing things that I have to do rather than things I'd love to be doing. And we all should be going through phases like that as an entrepreneur. And what I learned myself when it comes to that is the things I either am not really great at and excel, and people would give me expert status, or the things I don't really enjoy are the first things I'm going to delegate. You know what I mean? I'm either not good at or I just don't enjoy it. Like, those are the things I'm going to find people that do enjoy it or are good at it, and I can pay them to do it and focus on what I really enjoy. And that always keeps me lit up with what I'm doing,
Yeah, I do. And also, JP is here. He says, no, man, you can come on. He's camera ready to speak. So I'd love to get him on. He was actually putting some stuff out here in the chat. So he had some comments as far as JP, if you want to come on, just go ahead and get your camera on. I'll bring you up on stage here. He had evaluated the ad and considered it to be illegal. Sorry. Downselling is frowned upon by the FTC. He also mentioned the digital fingerprints. We're talking about AI, and it says USPTO has been rejecting IP registrations that use AI content, books, films, etc. 300-year legal backlog. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying, guys. A lot of this stuff, the thing about it is that whenever you're dealing with a lot of these social and open source things, so to speak, from a compliance standpoint, you really have to make sure your I's are dotted or your T's are crossed. But from a creative standpoint, I can't sit here and say that I own the alphabet. Like I can't sit here and say that I own English. So at some point in time, like the intellectual property that you're doing, like even what Ray talked about, it's called a synthesis, right? So that's why I think a few maybe episodes back we talked about it, Ray, where I was like 1 + 1 isn't 2 necessarily, it is 3. Because you got the new information plus the old information. And it's a synthesis. So, I mean, that's what we have to now. There is a legal benchmark to where you can't go past this percentage. I have to check, so don't quote me on this, but the last time I checked, it was around 10% before it starts getting to other gray areas. But for the most part, if you're what I want to train you to do, and what Ray definitely does, and we just want you to be prolific. You have a lot already in you. Somebody just needs to be able to just pick your brain a little bit, go a little bit deeper, because you have your own blind spots. It's no different to me. The way that the mind works is like, it's like a diamond. We can have all of these different colors of diamonds and the highest qualities VVS because it's just so clear, right? So if you got experts like me and Ray and also JP, then the reality of it is you're able to just go a lot further in your personal and professional life. And that's the whole purpose of this. So let me go ahead and get JP on. And anything that you wanted to add, Brother Ray?
I mean, I guess not right at the moment. There's something I'm going to bring up if I'm able to screen share when you have a minute, and when we talk more, dive into the messaging again. But if you want to bring on JP, we'll go through that now, and then I'll do that in a few minutes.
Sure, 100%. So, JP, are you there? I saw you and you turned your camera off. I'm going to make sure you were good to go, sir.
I see him.
What's going on, JP? How are you?
Testing. I'm good. Thanks for inviting me. How's everybody doing today? Great
Great.
conversation so far. Awesome. Thanks. Good to see you guys. I didn't really have a whole lot in terms of what I wanted to add with specificity, other than just it's a fantastic conversation, and I've been following on in the chat here, and I agree with everything that you guys have said. It occurs to me that the two of you guys know me, but people on the recording may not. I'm an industry professional, and without getting into a long, drawn-out conversation, I found the ad to be in violation of FTC trade law. And there's very specific reasons for that, but the primary reason is making any implicit or explicit income claims that do not relatively respectfully represent the median or the mean earning or the average income by each client individually. And so they consider that misrepresentation, or at the very least misalignment in the marketing. So that ad, I wouldn't give 2 seconds to raise point to it, but unfortunately we have a lot of copycat Mickey Mouse marketers out here that, to your point, Fred, are copy-paste, monkey see, monkey do marketers, and they think that making income claims, lifestyle claims, return on investment claims, various types of claims, there are 15 different types of claims that will lead to a violation that I train for. And so that's something that I'm very acutely aware of with my own marketing. And to your point, Fred, one of the things that has me kind of paralyzed with fear is that I'm a solopreneur, independent operator, and I left the big agency to be an independent, basically a sovereign being to some degree or another. And the challenge that I had, quite frankly, with that is that walking away from big corporation, I didn't have the legal team, the legal structure, and all of the infrastructure, quite frankly, to insulate me from the market. I didn't want to be a frontline worker in any capacity. So I've had to come back and restaff and re-engineer my entire offer and my infrastructure so that 2 things. Number one, I'm assuming all the rights and responsibilities on the legal side of things. And then secondarily, all of the content has to be cleared through legal and go through basically a compliance check. And it's stuff like this that's just the average everyday amateur imitator marketer out there is going to miss this. And to everyone's point on the call, I'll just reiterate for the sake of conversation, it gets incredibly expensive, both on the regulatory violation side with fines and possible imprisonment, jail time, and potential criminal liabilities there, which I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to get into that. But on the other side, the business and reputational damage will just put somebody out of business. We live in a world where ratings and reviews and reputation make a huge difference in whether or not a person's business succeeds or stalls, whether they get momentum or whether they not. So I'm going to pause there. I've said a whole lot. Thank you guys for allowing me to contribute today. Thank you.
No, anytime, JP. I mean, you're spot on with a lot of stuff, and that's the reasons why I do love you like a brother, man, because you stay up on a lot of this stuff, and that's the reasons why New Room Collective is here, guys, is because, you know, when teamwork does make the dream work, and it's like when I was in the automotive industry, when I used to do finance and insurance as an example, I used to have to know like compliance like the back of my hand. And what was one of the things that just absolutely startled me when I came online was just like, this is beyond the wild, wild west. Like, I don't think you guys understand. And to your point, JP, there are certain Instagram sites out there where they actually show the legal stuff, what's going on in the back end with these guys getting subpoenaed and stuff like that. It's a very real thing when you start having that go on. Like some of the IP stuff that I did, bro, I never talked about this publicly, but you're one of the real ones who I know, love, and trust. So I'll just put it out here like this. Some of my IP was so high level that I had to publish as a business law attorney with some publishers just because my stuff was that unique and people were trying to pull it away from me. So it can get really hairy really fast if you don't know what you're doing. And to be able to navigate all of this stuff, to your point, JP, I would say maybe fear is a strong word with me. But to your point, like that's one of the reasons why we have New Room Collective, is because me and Ray have been through the slings and arrows. Like it's nothing like getting a cease and desist in the letter. I've gotten them. It's crazy. It's just like, what are we talking about right now? All I'm just trying to do is feed my family, right? But this is the kind of stuff where even at the end of the day, people go, hey, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And it's one of the reasons why collectively I'm putting this out here as a public service announcement. I say this with love because, look, I learned this stuff from a high level in the military. Okay, period. Like words can turn into war. So you're talking about jail. How about death? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get super 100 with this. But we're not talking about, some things right here that are that nefarious. What we're talking about are everyday marketers and advertisers who want to help out people with their talent, skills, and ability, who get caught up in the crossfire of legalities, when in fact we should also be working on collaborating. So there's also there's this push-pull that I see, especially online. And the interesting thing online, and then I'll shut up, is this it's like a mayfly. Things happen so fast online. It's a flash in the pan, and by the time it happens, you're already down the road, and somebody's already monetized what you're trying to figure out. And this is like years. So it becomes a big echo chamber too. And that's one of the reasons why I want us to really start a new standard in New Room, is simply because we have some of the most world's top thought leaders and experts like you, JP. Like, your stuff. Me and you had some serious conversations, and you're totally next level. So my point to you is, all of us can still, with all the brain power, really get to the next level together. And that's what we want. We want to have a platform where people can come together, come through. I see also Saul. So if he wants to come through, he can. And we all just share what's best practices, because I don't want our best practices to become collective ignorance like I'm seeing online. And that's all I want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll go next. And the thing I think that I align with most that JP was talking about, which every aspect you were pretty much reiterating what we said, and I pretty much agree with everything. But the reputation aspect he mentioned, it only takes one bad experience for things to explode nowadays. It could be one viral moment or one person with a big audience. It could even be not always 100% true. There's half truths, and there's two sides to every story. And then there's the third side, right? As everybody talks about, there's the left, there's the right, and then there's usually the truth somewhere in the middle of both parties. But that has always made it, on my end, the easiest aspect of compliance. Is I'm always very cognizant of my reputation. I actually record every single call I do, just so I know everything that comes out of my mouth is recorded. I operate that way because I just want to be very authentic and unfiltered and accountable for my actions and words. So I just always assume, whether I'm on a Zoom call or not, that everything is going to be recorded and could come back to me. And I don't ever say anything or create anything or publish anything that I can't look myself in the mirror on, or can't lay my head on the pillow at the end of the night and feel proud of myself, and that, I put out the best content, or, did the best training I could for my clients, whatever that is. So the reputation is always very important to me. And very similar to you, Fred, you and I are cut from the same cloth in this aspect, is we're very relational salespeople, very relational business advisors, consultant agency operators, in terms of, how we build relationships. And whether it's friends ultimately turn clients or clients ultimately turn friends, it's some combination of the two. But we're both to the point where, as opposed to when, at least for me, and I'm pretty sure with you, with most people, when you get started, you have to do all the outreach and start all these conversations and make all these connections. And now it's to the point where I'm getting opportunities coming at me left, right, and center, and it's just from doing what I do. It's from getting out there speaking, it's from creating new videos, it's from working with clients, it's from word of mouth. And a lot of it is, with me, honestly, from reputation. Everybody says, I worked with Ray and I had a great experience. He delivered exactly what he told me. He actually went and over delivered. Hey, I actually met Ray and we hung out and had a beer and dinner together with one or two of my clients. So that type of stuff has always really made it relatively easy for me to feel good about being compliant and authentic as well with the type of content I put out there.
Yeah, 100%. And JP, there was something that you wanted to add, brother?
It's a bit of a revelation, and I'll make it brief, 30 seconds or less. For the recording, we've had a couple of private conversations, all of us, behind the scenes. One of the things I was really touched by, quite frankly, is this real, what I consider to be a sincere, authentic, wanting to know, wanting to learn. And one of the things that you said to me, Fred, was, if there's a way for you to help people, please try to consider doing so. And that was something that was really heartfelt and sincere. Part of the reason why is because, similar to Fred, I've been locked away in industry for 20 plus years, so something of in a hermetic vault, right, sealed away from the general public. And so the general public has no idea who the heck I am at all. I've been working in private industry, for 20 plus years now. And so having to communicate to the general market is overwhelming, in the sense that you have all of these considerations, content, legal considerations, offer, all the rest of it. So I've been working directly with Ray now for the past few weeks, and Ray's been helping me get dialed in for all of the things that I know. I'm acutely aware of all of the things that I don't know. And one of the things that I tell everybody all the time is I reserve the right to be wrong. And so I was wrong. I was really wrong. I came to this open market with the old idea, old psychology, and the old paradigm, which was competition, hardcore, cutthroat, corporate capitalism. That's where I come from. Okay, so we're not only competing for revenues and clients, we're competing for market share. We're dominating percentage of the market, right? We're capturing a very specific part of that market, and we're very, forgive me for saying so, but we're very militaristic with our campaigns. Okay, if we don't hit our objective goals, then we failed objectively, right? And so that's a level of training that the vast majority of the industry just does not have. And that's sort of my pedigree, my background and where I come from to a certain degree. So when I look at the market, I'm like, these guys are going to get in trouble. There's infractions everywhere. There's violations everywhere. And I'm like scared out of my mind because the FTC just got $150 million of new resources to pour into the market. Okay. So as an independent owner operator, looking at a sea of other independent owner operators going, they're going to eat us alive, like all of us. And so to your point, Fred, having a copy paste sort of approach here means that we have to reset the paradigm, reset the programming, reset the directive, and then go to market with that. And so that's what really inspired me to come out of my shell is you guys really want to make an impactful difference. It's not just about money. It's not just about clout. I mean, I've done the Lamborghini thing, not personally, but I've been around it enough to know it's empty, it's hollow, and it's a shell of an existence. Okay, what really is meaningful and impactful is driving the results, building community, creating culture, and quite frankly, changing the trajectory of the network. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you guys for allowing me to share, and I appreciate you guys giving me the time to speak. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, JP. You're amazing. And just to finish up what JP was saying, this is the reasons why me and Ray have done this. And JP, I really want to honor you for just your courage, because I know it takes a lot to get out here in public, because that was the hardest thing for me. I mean, people who know me. It's just like at a super high level. Like if you bought something with a car, like I was that guy, like for real at a super high level. And it's not the same thing when you're finally, like when you turn midnight, all of a sudden you turn into that pumpkin, and now you got to really know. First of all, my trajectory stayed even higher when I got out of the Marine Corps. And that's when I first met Ray, was like when I had a mastermind in LA called the Level 51 Mastermind. And this was just before the pandemic. And I was just breaking people's businesses down, and just like, how do you even know all of this stuff? Like, this is a language we haven't even heard. And that's around the time when I met you, Ray. And then we started rocking together, and the rest was history. We've done some crazy things together. We've helped people make tens of millions of dollars. We've closed over 100 million together. I mean, this is stuff that's online. So to Jay's point, there is a certain pattern out here. And what I especially want to do is be able to bring everybody together who needs this kind of help to really have, because we have the resources. That's what I'm saying. Me and Ray have innovated to the point where we're ahead of this curve. And Ray, I haven't even talked about the AI stuff that we have. We still haven't even talked about the AI like program. Like I've had that for like about a half a year.
I think you're keeping it from the world, just hidden back to yourself for world domination, like those capitalist pigs, huh?
No, you know what? Maybe we'll do it. We'll do it next show. I think we should.
Yeah, let's dedicate a whole thing to it. Yeah,
we'll do that. Yeah, because it's just so innovative, guys. Like y'all don't understand. Like some of the stuff that like what me and Ray have had to do. We've had to wait for technology to catch up. So
that's true.
it's at that level where when you're an innovator and you're a pioneer, and this is what I told even some of the other people who were our clients. I'm like, sometimes you have to turn back around as a leader and remember why you started in the first place, because there are people who are 1 or 2 steps behind you who are reaching for help, but you can't see them because you're too far ahead. Like you have to be able to close that gap.
Yeah, and to JP again, you were already off by the time off the screen by the time I had a chance to say so. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I agree with Fred. I appreciate and acknowledge that does take courage, especially for people that haven't really come out of their shell. You had talked a little about your background, being in the private sector, in the capital world, and everything has been sealed and nobody really is privy to even hear about a lot of your background, never mind know about it, but not even be aware. So kudos to you on that. Now, the other thing he was talking about that I want to give a little balance to, because guys, it's good to be thorough, it's good to do research, it's good to make sure you're compliant and be cautious, but don't let it paralyze you from moving forward either. That's what I do see happen with certain individuals. They overanalyze that aspect. And the two things I will say to help, people, JP, Sean, who was on the call last night, anybody that's kind of struggling with that type of stuff and really cognizant of it, again, be cautious, be aware, but don't let it paralyze you or stop you from doing what you need to do daily, whether that's sending messages or creating content, because that stuff can be done. The two things I would say, as long as you stay true to yourself and you choose your words wisely, you're going to be all right. Just get out there and start producing. I always say, going back to shortly after when Fred and I first met, we met working for, at the time, a large digital consultancy. But my job there as a specialist and basically a triage rep was to just sit there and meet with business owners for 8 hours a day and diagnose their business. That's what I did. I get on a call. Where are you at? Where are you trying to get to? What's been their biggest roadblock? And then it would always come down to one or two things, especially with people doing somewhere between 5 and 20K a month. It's either marketing or sales, okay? Or a combination of the two. It's not their funnel. It's not their website. It's not their lack of traffic. It's one of these two things right now, if not two of them. Do we need to get people in the door to your funnel, to your landing page? Or once they get in the door, can we not close the deal and actually sign them? Or is it both, right? And we got to get the people in the door and then close the deal. But usually it's one of the two, if not a combination of the two. And, shortly after that, I felt like I had enough experience. I had already been, doing a lot of research, taking courses, investing in myself, hiring coaches, all that stuff that we all do, try and get ready for the online game. And then I figured before I started myself, let me go get some experience with an established company and be able to get a little more eyeballs on the game, be able to work with a high-performing team and see how high-performing sales teams operate, for everything from the meetings, the huddles, the KPIs. What I really learned and embed into now, I build, manage, and run sales teams. And a lot of that stuff I took from there. But a lot of the things I took away were what not to do as well. There were certain things within the culture and the way that was run that I would never embed into how I run my team huddles or how I might talk to individuals. So all those things were great factors that led into, again, when you and I met and working together, we met at that company, but we stayed in contact and rocking together on so many big projects, working with so many clients, so many different brands and companies, whether they were, ours, whether we were bringing you on board, whether we were getting, contracted in to go, just be a sniper with our advice, and then people would go implement it and we would never get the credit. But that's part of the game, which we're all fine with. But again, guys, just stay true to yourself, be genuine, be authentic, and choose your words wisely, and you'll be okay. Get out there and get your message out. Talk about the problems you solve. Make people aware of the problems in your market. Talk about your unique solution that's different from the mainstream crappy solution by going to another one of XYZ agency with their Hormozy guarantee. Why are you different? Why are you better? Talk about it, and then talk about the results and the outcomes your clients see. That will attract your ideal clients.
Yeah, period. And I think if you're watching this, then you are part of that shift. And I have to say it like that, Ray, because we're not built for everybody, because
I don't want to be built for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go into it a little bit more, because sometimes I think we just kind of like gloss over it. But the thing about it, though, is just that it's true. I can tell you there's only been one deal in my life that when I looked at it, it wasn't ethical, and I felt really bad about it. It was a long time ago. It was in the car game, and that's it. Like, other than that, I mean, I've earned honest dollars. So you're saying, just so I understand and the audience understands, you're saying a deal you didn't feel great about, but you still did it for the money or the commission or whatever? Well, the guy asked me if he had bad credit. I mean, he did, but he didn't. He So there was a fine line, you're saying. Right. It's just like, could I have shown a little bit more leniency and love in my response? 100%. But the thing about it, though, is that I felt after I did the deal that I broke the trust, and he didn't even know it. Right. That's integrity right there. And it's stuck with me, and it still sticks with me, because it was at that moment like people don't understand why I got into the car game. I got into the car game because first of all, I still had a secret clearance. Like it wasn't much that I could do. Nobody wanted to deal with somebody coming out the Persian Gulf who still hadn't been, I'm still got dust on my boots, right? So nobody didn't know what would happen if they hired like a vet straight out of a combat situation, quite frankly. And then the second thing was,
gamble, right?
Huh?
It's a little bit of a gamble, right?
Oh, 100%. When I look at it from that perspective, but the other thing too is just that I didn't want to stay in it because I almost got killed. So, How to say on social media, you gotta go. You can't say the word, right? But it's just like people don't understand like how precious and how short life is. So when I broke that trust, it was just like, well, the other reasons I got into the car game was because at that point in time I was a consumer and I got ripped off, and then I told my friends, like 5 or 6 of them, they got ripped off. And then my commanding officer pulls me to the side and he's just like, "You bought this car?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "And you told all these other people?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is totally illegal stuff." So it was at that moment where I was like, well, maybe I can change the industry. And I did in my own way. Like I'm one of the very first people who did like CSI, client satisfaction indexes, before they was even there. I was one of the first guys who literally was getting leads from like Ford, and like they were thermal fax paper and they used to roll up under the desk and people didn't know what to do with them. And now I figured that out with Ford and BMW and it's like all the other crazy companies, right? But it's just like when that moment hit me, I was just like, man, like I absolutely destroyed the reasons why I came into this game. Now coming online was a different story because it was just one of those things where it just kind of fell in my lap, right? But then I had a chance to really see how innovative we really are from a very high level as like marketers and advertisers, because I didn't even realize, to JP's point earlier, because I played at such a high level, I didn't even realize that there was even an industry. Like that's how, when I first met you, Ray, that's exactly how I came in. I came in with this big brain and I'm just like, okay, where do I park this thing?
Try to navigate it, right?
Right. I'm trying to get it through the door. It's not working. It's just like, and then I at some point in time, to JP's point, like I had to land and I had to unpack. And that's the hardest thing that you can do, is like when you got that much knowledge and information and you see the Yo Bro Lambo guys just making all of this money, and just go, well, wait, how is that even possible? It's because they are a lot more simpler and the sophistication level is less. So when you have simple movements, that's what really scales. Now, granted, I was scaling at that level, but that's like a different level, like new levels, new devils. Like it's no differently than climbing up a mountain, right? At some point in time, you've got to switch tools. But I'm starting with like these tools, and it's just crazy how that worked. So, working with some of the other people who, I work with online behind in their businesses as well, I had to really learn how to be amazingly simple. And then when I tried to, they're like, no, wait, you can do all of this stuff. I'm just like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to write copy. Can I just write copy, please? Like, that's all I want to do.
That's been one of my zones of genius too, is just simplifying. Like somebody asked me how you do this. I'm like, ABC. And they're like, oh, it's that simple? I'm like, yeah. They're like, I thought there was 18 steps. No, you can do it in 3. Let's do this way. Do you want to do 18 steps to build your house, or do you want to do it in 3?
Yeah, 100%. So it's one of those things where, to your point earlier, though, just ABC, always be closing. But I am looking. I think we should also do a sales one as well. People really need to understand exactly the magnitude of what we do, because it's just like the reasons why I start from the advertising level is not because I'm really good at it, but the thing about it is you can't close effectively if you don't have your message right. So it's just that's the reasons why we got so many slimy tactics out there, is because people just don't know how to communicate, quite frankly.
Yeah, you're right. Slimy tactics to try to close off bad marketing and advertising and bad messaging, and then you gotta, again, you might have to do some I would say less than conventional methods to close deals, which I'm not a big fan of. I mean, what you let off saying, and I know I kind of blurted right out, you're like, we're not built for everybody. It's true. I don't want to be built for everybody, number one. And what's the main reason behind that? Number one, I want to work with, and I work with winners. Not everybody's a winner out there. Sorry, I'm not going to feed you rainbows and sunshine all day, because not everybody's a winner. Some of you guys are going to sit in your mom's basement and play video games. And some of you guys are happy with where you're at, which doesn't mean you're not a winner, right? But like, you don't want the same outcome of what I want and the ambition of the clients I'm looking to work with. So number one, I work with winners. Not everybody's a winner. It's cut and dry. Does that mean there's a difference between losing and losers? Losers are just always going to lose. You could be losing, but you have a winning mentality and an effort and an attitude, and that can change sometimes with a subtle tweak. But there's some people that just don't have the drive and don't want it. If that's you, that I don't want to be built for you, right? And second, in addition to that, winners, but winners that also match my values, ethics, integrity in terms of the people I want to work with. There's definitely people that win in business that I would not want to associate with or not want to work with. So I think that's part of the beauty of kind of, you know, I don't want to see becoming more popular. I don't know if that's the right word, but working with more and more clients and just getting out there more and more. The beauty of that is I can be much more selective. Not that, you know, and when you were talking about that car experience, and the reason I asked you is I was thinking hard back to it. And there's probably two deals that kind of came up in my head in the back of my mind that I still think about that really didn't sit well with me and I didn't feel great about it. But what I really learned from that, and I think both, I know one, if not both, became a chargeback. So that's number one, just a quick disclaimer. But it really helped me steer away from not enrolling people that I wasn't 100% dead set on. Some I'm like, I think I can help them, but the contract's good, so I'll enroll them. Like there was one or two deals I did like that, and then I was like, never again, and I haven't, you know. But
yeah.
And in full honesty, I didn't feel great about those deals.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it too, bro. It doesn't matter whether you're online or offline. You can't outrun the chargeback. I don't care.
No, you can't.
Nobody can outrun.
Not even Forrest Gump can.
Yeah. So I mean, but the thing about it though is that that's the reasons why we have sustainment in this game, is because what you want to be able to do is to really focus in on your zone of genius. And if that makes you happy, you're going to make the money. It will follow. I didn't believe that at first, but when I started thinking that way, my whole life shifted. Like literally, even somebody asked me the other day, they're like, well, what else do you want to do? I'm like, I've pretty much done everything I want to do. I've had all the money I want to have. I've had all the experiences I want to have. I just maybe want to have a little bit more. But to me, my ultimate end goal, especially with New Room, is to really drop this kind of knowledge that me and Ray and JP and other creators have. You know, I'd love to get Christiane on here. I talked to Namisha earlier. I talked to a few other people in the room. We have so much talent in that room.
On one time too.
Huh?
Sometime soon. Get Tayu on sometime soon too. I think she'd be a good person to have on.
Yeah, 100%. So we have so much talent in that room. I mean, it's just, I want to get Sky on here. It's just like, what we want to, again, you can be an owner operator. What the whole goal of this as well, Ray, me and you never really talked about it, but I want to be able to roll out the executive entrepreneur as well, because I know we started working on that. That's for this crowd as well. The people who are owner operators and are trying to pull away. Yeah, that's huge. So we have it in our program called Audience Roadmap, just so you guys know. It's a highly vetted, curated program that's literally probably a minimum of 6 or 7 years just being online. That's just one part of it, though. It's not including the 30 plus years of principles learned from the organizations that like JP's talking about and what Ray's talking about and a lot of clients. So again, I'm not a firm believer in giving you stuff that we haven't either done or tested, but some of the stuff is still cutting edge. Like it's still the stuff that you are looking for, and it will give you the substantial edge. And the reason why I can say that with authority is because when we were putting this together, it was in real world situations, like literally, hey, it's going to make or break businesses, like period, end of story. We got to shut down teams of 30 plus if this doesn't work. Like that's how me and Ray play. We turn wrenches to get the result, and we don't talk about stuff that we haven't done, like period. It doesn't, we don't play like that. So that's all I really wanted to talk about on that deal, Ray. I know you wanted to talk about some other stuff that you wanted to pull up. Do you still have it? Because I don't know how to.
Yeah. Let's get into that, and we'll kind of wrap up shortly after that. And I'll try to keep this pretty short. But share screen.
Cool.
This looks to be right. And
you able to share the screen, brother? Because I'm still.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure I get my option.
All right. I'm still tech ignorant on a lot of stuff, so we need some production crew.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you seeing my screen?
I can't see anything right now, Ray. I did want to send a shout out to the new people who did join New Room Collective. We got some more hitters in there. Some of them are very well known in the space. Yeah, let me go ahead and add this to the stage, brother. I think we're good. No, is that it?
Okay, cool. Now I'll go back to the right. Yeah. That's the right one. I just got to switch back to the tab. But yeah, we should be good now, cool. Right? Can you see this
Yeah.
document on my screen saying understanding effective messaging?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. That's what I just want to go over. So really quick, guys, since, today's whole episode and what we were breaking down was that workhorse ad in the beginning, but everything we talk about, I shouldn't even just say this episode, pretty much everything fundamentally that Fred and I do with every client we work with and everything we've had success with. And what we've been talking about here, as I was talking about choosing your words wisely, et cetera, is effective messaging. So really quickly, I'm going to go over this super quick. Fred, then I'll kick it back to you for some thoughts and additions. I don't want to go through this like as in depth as we did in the actual challenge, but this is a quick little overview and outline, guys, of a live 5-day challenge that Fred and I ran last summer with 30 or 40 students. Man, they got a hell of a deal on that thing too, and then the results and the case studies and the testimonials we got after that.
Yeah. If you want to go deep into this, go for it, dog, because that's what we're rolling out again. Like seriously, go from day one, go hit it.
Yeah, I'll go through it. I'm just saying I'm not going to spend the same amount of time I would have if I'm teaching it. But yeah, totally. So anyway, what is really important with messaging? What we got to get through to everybody from the get-go is understanding effective messaging right off the bat. So what is that contingent upon, right? Different concepts of messaging, different types of messaging, different psychology that goes into messaging, et cetera, et cetera. So concepts, right? What is the intention or intent behind the what, the why? Reverse engineering based on results, outcomes, as I talked about earlier, problems, solutions, how to stand out in the marketplace, how to kind of fill gaps, right? And fill gaps in the marketplace. So different concepts, different types, right? There could be short form, long form, storytelling, video, still image, text, yada, yada, yada. We can go through it all, but what is the right type and the right type of content I want to use on this platform for this objective on this messaging? And those can all change with little nuances and intricacies, contingent upon multiple factors, but mostly upon what I just talked about, the platform, the objective, et cetera, et cetera. Then understanding the human psychology that goes into messaging. And when that message hits the person's ears, if it's audio, when it hits their mind, if they read it, whatever, you need to really be able to understand as a copywriter and a business owner, what is that message doing in their brain? How is that getting received and then processed and digested? And what type of either action or emotion is it leading them to feel? So understanding all those. Fred, before I go any deeper, since we're going to spend a little time in spitball, anything you want to, talk about in terms of concepts, types, psychology before I go through some more?
Yeah, just a little bit, because you're spot on. I think the biggest thing that I would want people to take away from this right now is to understand that because we're going to run this again here shortly, success really is simple. So what we work to do is to simplify your message to the point where it's scalable, like out the gate. Because if we're able to get you to a certain point where you're out of your head and more into the game, even if you're already successful, it's these little small things that make a big difference. It's like the little hinges swing big doors. That's all I wanted to add to that, brother.
Great. Then also understanding effective messaging. I think a lot of times people craft their message. I know a lot of times people craft their message without a clear objective of what do they want the outcome to be? What do they want the reaction to be? Are they doing this to get conversions, likes, comments, engagement, to build authority, to tell their story? So what is the exact objective, right? And as I say, a little tip to kind of thinking yourself and breaking that down, think like a media buyer in terms of, am I educating? Am I trying to raise awareness? Again, conversions, engagement, authority. And really, how can I stand out with this message and not sound like everybody else that's either a competitor, competition, colleagues even, but how do you want to stand out and differentiate? There's always ways to do that. But a lot of times we don't think about that till after we've crafted or published messaging. And then it's like, then we kind of go back and critique it, which is fine if we're getting better. But what if we thought like that before we ever crafted it, so we knew it would hit our market better and get better results? And then, of course, a lot of things are going to be dependent upon the platform or the channel or the avenue you're using to create your content. So I'm going to create content different for social media than I might for cold email, different on cold email than my sales page, different on my ad copy than I'm going to have in my organic to an extent. Right? All of that, there's going to have subtle differences. And what I put in there for a lot of my clients and mine and Fred's students who came through this challenge was a good storytelling framework I've been using over and over for about 6 years now. And again, this isn't really only effective to a new audience. So for me, going back to all these things about objective type, right? Story form is usually a little bit long form. Story, the story objective, usually a little bit long form. Who am I doing that for? An unaware audience. So when's a good time for me to create story-based content and post it on my timeline, per se, in Facebook? Is every time I go through a campaign where I'm accepting a bunch of new friend requests. I just created a bunch of content that's having a lot of new people come to my page. For whatever reason, adding a lot of people is a current objective of mine, and I know I'm getting a lot of new people. So let's just say, I don't know, I got about 6,000 followers. Let's just say I had another 500 to 1,000, another 10 to 15% into my timeline. At that point, I want to create a great new story-based post to 80% of my audience is going to tune it out and scroll where I buy it, but its only objective is to hit that new 15% to give them a good understanding of who I am and build up a little of that know, like, trust factor and give them the ability to relate to me. So, Fred, anything you'd like to add to that before I go a little deeper?
Yeah, I think that the key here, and that's a bang up job, Ray. The reality of it is we want to be able to get that relatability, because that's one of the anchor points. And that's what I was getting into on that one post I did the other day in that other group that you liked, but we'll talk about that later. This is spot on, brother.
Yeah, and that quick little framework, guys, I'm not going to go and give the whole example. We just don't have time now. But if you just start off with what I do or what we do, hey, man, I'm Ray and I'm the co-owner of a digital consultancy. Then I go right into my backstory. And then step one, I start to talk to my audience about a big leap of faith that I took. For example, I left my corporate job and took a big unknown dive into the entrepreneurial world. Step two, obstacle I faced. For me, that happened to be physical obstacles. And anybody that knows me knows I had some back problems. And it was a big indicator and a big, reason why I do what I do now. And I look back on it somewhat thankfully. Then I would talk about some of my success examples, some of my income, my lifestyle. For me, it's more the time and the resources I can give to my kids that I wasn't able to do when I worked in a corporate job. And then I include some social proof at the end. But what I have in quotes there might not quite be what you think. So when I base my story-based post, guys, I don't mean social proof like I'm screaming out screenshots of revenue claims. I'm like, hey, not only did I get this result, talking about my success, the income, the lifestyle, the fulfillment I now feel, being challenged, like all the things I talk about that fire me up about what I do. It's not just that I make more money than I ever made, but it has to do with all these other things. So, when you go through this process, what a lot of people are thinking is like, okay, well, Ray is the co-owner of this, or, he did this, that, but I'm not exactly like Ray, so I don't know if I could get that same result. But then my social proof is, hey, not only did I do it, but Bob, Joe, and Susie all followed my trainings and my techniques, and now they all have the income and the lifestyle and are as fulfilled as they want. And then all of a sudden your audience starts to think, well, not only could Ray do it, but so could Bobby, Susie, and Joe. Well, why the hell can't I, right? So again, I'm just breaking down this framework and telling you a little about the psychology that goes into the reader's perspective. Fred, anything to add to that?
Yeah, definitely, because it is about their perspective, not your perspective. And that, to your point, that's one of the biggest things that I see that's a fail that we always have to fix.
That's a good point. You're so true about that. I almost overlook that or don't think about it because I'm always very good about thinking from the reader's point of view, being in their shoes. But you're right. A lot of business owners think they know what they know about their business. And I'm not saying they don't know, but what they know and what they say doesn't always resonate with their audience. I'll tell you that. And just because you're an expert in your own subject matter doesn't always mean you can break that down to in a manner that somebody is either going to get intrigued, engaged, or be curious to actually want to find out more about that. Right? Those are two vastly different things. So putting yourself in the prospect shoes. So guys, day 2 of the challenge that we did. And again, this is kind of when we ran this challenge, it was kind of vision from victory, meeting with everything that was already working with the PDOCS messaging system. And Fred did a lot of the teachings on this particular day when it was crafting the vision and purpose behind your messaging. Something I overlooked for a long time in my life till I really got closer working with Fred and dove into the whole, vision from victory side to things. It helped me really change my messaging in terms of really incorporating my vision and purpose into that. I wouldn't say I never did it, but it wasn't something I was really aware of and cognizant of. And I didn't make it a priority into how I was crafting my messaging. I think it just happened, just kind of happenstance, for lack of a better phrase. And I can go through that a little more, but Fred, would you like to talk about that a little before I kind of break down what we covered?
Yeah, brother, definitely. And the key to this one, guys, is that we have to consciously bring to reality what we're trying to communicate, because what happens is we don't really like the example that we started out with earlier as the ad, as an example. He may, or the company may have had a vision, but the question is, is it being communicated correctly, and even more specifically in this case, compliantly? So that's the reasons why this program is so important. But that's all I want to say, brother.
Awesome. Awesome. So guys, yeah, when we were talking about the vision, we did this was a 5-day challenge. So we everything I'm going through here, we had a full day dedicated to each headline you see in the bold. So of course we don't have that kind of time here whatsoever. But Fred talked about and did a great lesson from his Close More Deals book, which if you guys haven't seen the PDF or haven't had access to that, let Fred know. He can tell you how to get a hold of that. That was really good. But that lesson in that particular context and that challenge, I still remember how much it was blowing people's mind. And I remember, Fred, as you were talking and teaching this particular aspect, I'm looking at the Zoom room and seeing like literally people's jaws dropping. It's like, oh my God, I just never thought of it that way, or I've never even thought of it, never mind thought of it that way. So there was a lot of real awakenings, and we had some pretty good minds in there. We had some legit marketers and copywriters and advertisers, and they were still jaw dropping, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there a little bit. So that book literally came from me flying from the airport to Vegas, and I only had an hour. And I said, if I can really think about what the high level concepts that I've done, because this is when I was closing like $10 to $17 million per month with my team. Like we were crushing it, right? So I was just like, let me write this down real quick. That's where that book came from, and I still need to unpack that with you, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we ever got through unpacking the whole thing.
Nope.
It's pretty in depth. There's a lot in there, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, we went through the whole day too. Something that we do with all of our challenges, specifically every challenge I think I've ever run, but specifically something when Fred and I are running a challenge, we want to make them very interactive. So you guys might see on the screen, and again, we're not here to like pitch challenges. I just thought this was a good document to go over and bring up because we're talking about effective messaging, and this was the most recent or most relevant, I should say. Pretty recent too, less than a year old, but most relevant resource I think I have geared all around messaging. But what we do at the end of each day is assign homework to our students and an actual lesson. So within the 5 days, each of our students or clients had a new messaging campaign launched in under 5 days, whether that was revamping a landing page or email copy or LinkedIn messaging or DM setting or whatever it was. Everybody's might have been different. Some might have been taking what they learned here and incorporating it to multiple different messages or avenues or different aspects that I just mentioned about. But yeah, spent a lot of time going through that, and we did a lesson as we talked about today. If you guys can see down here this little YouTube clip and what Fred was going over and teaching, and then we gave again a little bit of homework to our students at the end of the day, was to how to use the Facebook ad library to find the proven and workhorse ads within your niches. So as we say really quickly, and again, don't want to spend too much time, but if you're missing or unclear about any aspects of what we went over in that particular lesson, it was all around the gaps in the marketplace that we're looking to fill. So that could mean a couple different things. Gaps could be the holes in the process that our product or service fills. It could be gaps in the internal processes within the business. It could be just gaps in a small little department, the acquisition, the lead gen, the advertising, whatever. But what hooks and angles can I create that are effective in my market that will address those gaps and get a business owner to say, oh shit, I need to find out more about this. I need to solve and plug this gap, right? So what we taught people, and Fred, you might be able to elaborate momentarily, is how to research the ads lab library, find workhorse ads in your niche and industry. And as I always say, think category kings, think big, think people that are going to spend with a budget so we can see ads with a lot of feedback and data and spend behind them to really break down what's performing, what's engaging, what's converting, right? And then we dropped a tutorial there. But Fred, do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, definitely. And shout out to Rebecca. She did have a question. We'll address that after you're done. And also Michelle, thank you so much. She said she had finally a chance to catch it live. So yeah, the thing about the whole ads library is in any of these libraries now, because I even think Google started to do it, definitely YouTube or some of the other places. But the thing about it is that transparency wins the game in 2025. So I've been using the ads library for a very long time. I'm one of the early adopters to running ads on Facebook. Like I was running ads back in like 2009 or some crazy stuff. So a lot's changed, but that's one of the reasons why we help you look, mirror, and model, because there's already something out there that's working. That's all I wanted to say from a very high level, brother.
Totally. And guys, in the chat in a minute, I'm going to go drop the link to that tutorial if anybody's curious, how to use Facebook ads library, has never done it, or is kind of clunky and can't really figure out how to find the ads they're looking for. I'll drop that link in the chat here momentarily once I'm done going through this document. So day 3 was halfway into the challenge. That's the halfway point, and that's where we got into the implementation and execution. So before we just start writing our messaging, right, we need to have a foundational understanding of effective messaging and what are the bare bones and the frameworks and the different nuances that we discussed, and understanding the vision and the purpose that go behind the messaging before we really get into implementation and execution. And on this day is where we got into the frameworks, instructions, frameworks and structures, and the lesson regarding crafting effective messaging. So the 4 key aspects that go into that is turning an audience from unaware to problem aware in many cases, the ability to pressure test your offer and find the gaps. I always say, guys, there's 4 P's in an offer that I always kind of pressure test. That's how it's packaged, positioned, priced, and the perceived value shown to your market. So I kind of reverse engineered and taught them how to pressure test those offers and how to identify those. And then we would, once we pressure tested and we had our unaware to problem aware messaging, we would identify the knowledge gaps to create our frames and our positioning. And then we would map out the transitional messaging, which I had a whole document that I provided people on the exact steps to do this. So what does that mean, like map out the transitional messaging? That's where you would use in your own problem-aware prospects, right? So I dropped a document below that showed different examples of like ads, emails, LinkedIn, Facebook, how I would do that on different platforms or different, formats and channels. And then we dropped examples of current messages that the students submitted. So again, by day 3, we're getting into the implementation. We make these challenges interactive with homework. So before day 3, they had provided us with the current messaging that they're using, or at least a mock or a template of what they were about to launch. And by the end of day 3 to just day 5, 2 days later, they would have brand new messaging launch that I guarantee you either blows away what they had in their template or what they were currently doing. Most of the people on that challenge were on there because they had a good product, they had a good expertise, but their stuff wasn't converting. And it all came back down to the messaging. So we made sure that every student that was actively looking to achieve a specific message objective submitted theirs so we could review them. And then we gave them some more homework on that. And they had the ability after the challenge to book a one-on-one with me and Fred and really go through their messaging on anything that we might not have had a chance to do in the challenge. Before I go into day 4, Fred, anything you want to elaborate on all this stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And you're doing a bang up job, man. Like this stuff right here, guys, is where the rubber really meets the road. I hate to be cliche-ish about it, but it's true. Because what happens is sometimes as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, startup, business, small business, whatever, we're running 1,000,000 miles an hour just to get the revenue. So to Ray's point, some of the people who we were working with last year, they hit this wall. It's this invisible ceiling that people typically tend to hit because they just don't make time to stop. There literally is an art to stopping. Like you have to learn how to stop. I still have the same problem as well because just high performers just don't want to stop. But again, you can get strange fruit. It can get really weird with your IP if you aren't continually curating it. So that's how important that day is, man. So that's incredible what you're saying.
Yep. And then we got into the optimization and organization. So what does that mean? Once we've created bare bones messaging and we have our template or our test, then we're going to launch it out to market. We're going to launch out 1,000 emails. We're going to put $1,000 in ad spend behind it to see what results we get. We're going to launch 30 DMs a day times 50 days for a total of 1,500. Whatever we know we need to get some feedback and get it out there into the market so we can open up for optimization. I always say, and Fred, you'll 100% agree, in everything we do, it's opening up that feedback loop with your marketplace, with your ideal clients, with the market you're trying to penetrate, and then making optimizations, tweaking, and just again, we talked about this a little earlier, being able to adjust and being malleable, and things like that. So when it comes to that with messaging, again, I'm going to skip by A because you guys weren't in the challenge, and that's where we kind of went over the day before's homework assignments, which is how we start off most days of the challenge. I went through a specific lesson in one of my flagship slideshow decks, which obviously are laid out there. We're not going to go through that, but I showed them really how to start optimizing the messaging there. And then C, we started to dive into more of the organizational tool, where I gave them their own star board to organize their messaging. What does that mean? If we're using any type of tool, and back in the day, we were using a Trello board. It could be anything. It could be Airtable. It could be a CRM basis. It could be just Google freaking Sheets. Doesn't really matter what we're using. But it's really good to have your content batched. Like, here's angles and ideas. Here's templates and pre-ready. Here's videos that are recorded. Here's ready to publish. Once it's published, now let's track it. Again, different formats, maybe different metrics, but how did it perform? Was it a winner or loser? And then we scale and we create more winners and we publish that in more places. We shelve the losers and test them. So we have this little star board that we would give to clients that had it pre-made in a template form with, I want to say, about 8 or 9 different columns, work in progress, testing, template, ready to publish, already live. This one's already got feedback, winners, losers. So a different column so you can organize all your content. And that really made it easier for them to create messaging at scale. Once you go out organically or paid and start getting results, you want to double and triple down on those metrics and those measures. And once you start to do so, guys, you need some organization and sometimes some tools behind it. We found that was a very powerful one. So their homework assignment that day was to simply, we gave them the link in the tool and gave them a copy for free to go create their own star board and at least start to load something in there, whether it's a template, content, research, whatever. It's not hard for any business owner to do a little bit of, put in a little bit of time, download and make a copy of something and upload something that has to do with their own offer and messaging. Fred, anything you'd like to add to that before I go on to the last day that we covered?
Yeah, bro, that's exactly the reasons why I had also mentioned the executive entrepreneur, because there's one thing that I want to add into our next challenge that's going to complement that. Because what was happening, guys, was that some of the people were actually starting to get the breakthrough in their businesses that they wanted. And as a result of that, they were looking for the next level of how to think through their next step, because this frees your mind up so that you can really focus in on controlling your business versus your business controlling you. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Like, this goes on all the time, especially if you're used to being a hands-on owner operator, whether you're a high ticket coach or a consultant or a small business owner. Like, it's the exact same pattern. So we have to be able to break that. And that's what day 4 does.
100%. And lastly, the one thing I didn't really cover on there, but we included and gave all of our students our patented How Hero script that has led to thousands, I don't even know how many thousands of engaging conversations and booked appointments. A way to do outreach on social media where you come off as the hero throughout your conversation. So we dropped all that and gave it all to our clients, and they embedded it into their board and started to create. So by day 5, literally from scratch and just a template or an idea in their mind of day 1 of what they wanted to launch, or again, existing messaging that just wasn't performing and converting and doing its job, to within 5 days later, you have this new stuff launched. And everybody had their campaign launched within 5 days. Some waited a 6th or 7th day to book a one-on-one call with me, you or I, to have us vet it, but they were ready to launch on day 5. And there's nothing bad with getting an extra, eyeball and getting an extra vetted by Fred or I. We gave the ability for our clients to do that for free if they join this challenge. Normally people would have to pay for that. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as we told them, go ahead, Fred.
No, I'm sorry. I want to jump in too, because I also want to let them know who this is for, because this is actually still for industry professionals, because that's who me and Ray have been working with for a very, very long time. So it's not just somebody who's new or a small business owner or an agency owner either. Like, this is we had some top level industry professionals recrafting their offers, because the market's going to continually shift. But if you don't have a great set of eyes that can help you level set exactly where you're at, it's going to be hard to grow within the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years without having to stop again. And then you have to redo and you don't know where you're at because you're truly stuck again. And that's what sucks.
Yep. And as I said here, what I thought the second half of this is really the more valuable aspect. Now, the kind of, I don't want to say promise, but I mean, what we expect and what we deliver within this challenge is not only will you be launching or have you already launched your new messaging campaigns, but more so, anybody that came to this challenge, I know now has the acumen and wherewithal to be able to continuously craft, fix, and or dial in messaging confidently and consistently from this day forward. So, not only did you craft or optimize and fix whatever messaging wasn't working or you needed to get out to market, but now you have the wherewithal to take this and apply it to any offer, any niche, any industry, or anything you do in the future. And I couldn't even imagine what's that worth, as opposed to what the hell did we even charge for this, Fred? Like $97 or something when we ran that live.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like $97, bro.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it could be more this time.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. But what we did that day is we went in, and what we do with everything is make the group interaction. So each day's session, when we run live challenges specifically, has a Q&A. But on the day 5 of any challenge that I run, guys, and this is a good tip to any of you guys that have or run challenge in the futures, I like to touch base with where everybody's at, especially when we have a main objective that day. Hey, we want to have our messaging already launched or launched by the end of today. Who's there and what have been the roadblocks, and really touch base. And what Fred and I do is, hey, we're in day 5 of the challenge. We haven't gone into today's lesson, but through 4 out of 5 days, where do you think this ranks in terms of value? And what didn't we provide that you guys would have liked to have seen in here? That way we can always be improving or making sure we're addressing that on this last day. You know, as much as I always predetermine my outline of curriculum and what I want to cover, I always want to make sure I'm open to being interactive, especially within that last day, and giving people what they want that I may not have anticipated. There's always going to be that stuff. So that's part of my mindset going into a challenge, especially the final day, making sure people really feel like they got their value. And then what did I leave out, or what might I need to embed into my next challenge? Where's the best place to get that feedback? From my current paying students, right, Fred?
Yeah, 100%. And the key thing, though, is to remember that the way that we have this structured and organized, one day is stacks one on top of the other in a very logical way, because me and Ray have had to work with some big, super, like, top tier, like, multinational companies in some of these clients. So we're just taking the best practices over those that are evergreen principles that will work, and not just now, but in the future. And I really want to bring that out.
Totally. And Fred, if you remember this day 5 lesson was a banger, especially right here and here, our B and C. You ran through most of this and I kind of chimed in with you, but the client attraction blueprint within your, again, close more deals PDF. And then we dove a bit more into eco, because now that we have the messaging launched or ready to launch, my eco framework, for any of you guys aren't familiar, from our PDOCS days, stands for engage, assess, assign, call to action, and obligation. And it's always this structural framework that we walk people through in our discussion. Doesn't matter. I mean, I think the examples I gave in that lesson was more from DM format, but it doesn't matter if I'm doing this in DM, through ad engagement, through email. It's still the same framework. I might word it a little different. I might keep it shorter or longer, but those are, again, just the small little subtle differences. And then I ran through my exact outreach approach. Now that I have this new messaging and I want to get it out there, hey, let me show you exactly how I generated my first $1 million just doing organic outreach and Facebook Messenger using this voice note strategy. And what did I do, Fred, if you remember on that session? I pulled up new friends live on my page. I clicked on their profile. I picked up my phone. I didn't hesitate. I picked up my phone and did my voice note strategy and gave them 2, 3, 4, 5 examples till they were comfortable they could replicate that. Yeah, that was a banger of a lesson. I remember that we closed out.
Yeah, and I think that when I saw a lot of light bulbs and people's eyes pop open because they really got it. If you didn't get it by day 3, you definitely got it by day 5, because what me and Ray really work to do, and thank you for sharing that, Ray, what me and Ray really work to do is that we want you to really understand what we're doing, because we want you to become prolific with messaging. And this actually ties into what Rebecca has said. So if it's okay, I want to write this out. She says, it's so hard to work with others at times because your thoughts and ideas are often taken and used in other businesses without permission or kickbacks. We've seen it happen so many times to others and ourselves. How do you handle stuff like that? We love collaboration, but it's hard to see others getting sales on our blueprints. Well, to really answer that question is from my viewpoint, Rebecca, and that's really an amazing question, because that was the hardest thing that I had to learn, that the online marketing space is one of the most incestuous spaces on this planet. You say one thing, and Ray has watched it happen, and it's happened to him. I will post one thing, and then with hours, sometimes minutes, somebody will say, hey, you want to know how I discovered, or this, and it's just like, wait, I've even saw people jacking it, not even verbatim, and I go, it was said like this, and I get unfriended, right? So what's going to happen, though, Rebecca, is that there is a really great reset that's happening online. You've got real experts online who have enough intellectual property. And I'll give you an example of that. When I first got online in New Room, I didn't have an offer. and people were just like,
True.
yeah, Ray was there. It's just like, what are you
People are
selling?
baffled. They were asking you what you're offering. You're like, what are you talking about? My offer. And you didn't even, you were clueless to an extent.
Yeah,
It's funny.
I was like, there's like, what are you selling? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you selling? Like, I don't understand. They're like, you're just giving us away for free? We charge like $10,000 for this. I'm just like, well, what you're giving away for free is like not even my minimum standard. Like, seriously, let that sink in, Rebecca. You've got so much intellectual property. Here's the easiest way to answer that question, though. If you're ever wanting to help somebody, look at the biggest pain step that you had previously and give them that. Like, you don't have to give them a lot. You're the expert by design. When you're a true expert, you know that you got so much to give. Like, it'll take me a million lifetimes just to even unpack some of the stuff even me and Ray have talked about, right? So just give them literally, and I do agree with some of the gurus on this, give them the best of your best stuff, because here's what happens. From a collaborative standpoint, people who may have had that same problem now see you as the authority, and they will come to you for help. And of course, if they want to pick your brain, tell them to pick a payment. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But here's what happens, though, especially online, and I really discovered this. I'm about to give you a savage technique. And I'm telling you, this one works. You're going to have people who are going to try to take your stuff. I'm trying to keep it compliant because I want to monetize, right? You're going to have people who are going to try to take your stuff. And what's going to happen is they're going to leave a breadcrumb and footprint all across the internet. You're going to find out exactly where they were, where they got stuck. And the next thing you know, you've conquested an audience, quite frankly. So I would just say literally give them the best stuff that you can give them up front. Don't really hold anything back, because what happens is people can feel that. So, and as a result of them feeling it, they're going to feel uncomfortable with that. Now, one thing that I don't agree with, but I do agree with as an example, and I know we're almost out of time, Ray, is that literally, like, when I started doing high ticket, I'm like, well, why would I spend that? And then my high ticket coach will be like, well, if you aren't spending, then nobody else behind you will spend that. I tend to agree with that. At first I didn't, but looking at the dynamics of how the online marketing world is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you give them a crap product. I want to be super clear about that.
Yeah, nobody's saying that.
And I know you've got a ton of value, so that's not even an option with you. I'm talking about, like, for example, when I started spending more than $50,000 for a mastermind, and my wife will tell you, she's kept records. I've spent well over $1 million, and for some people that's still not nothing, and it's okay. But for me in particular, though, what I was looking for, you have to know what your intention is as to why you want to share in the first place. I want to be super clear about that. And then from there, you'll be able to reverse engineer exactly how much you want to give and how much you want to keep behind that paywall. So when it is time for them to pay, then they'll be glad to say, shut up and take my money. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, then we can talk about it more in a group. But I really appreciate that question.
I'd like to add on to that a little real quick, Rebecca. My thought, and I couldn't agree more with Fred on give away your best stuff for free. I've always really believed that, and I've always operated that way. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, no, you hold your best stuff back for your paid clients. I'm not saying you're not doing that, but you can give your best stuff away for free and still charge for it, because generally speaking, Fred had alluded to this, people are paying for implementation, not information. They can probably go out and get the information from a lot of different places. Now, more to the point of, like, you know, the frustration sometimes, or the philosophy or the thought process behind people kind of taking credit off your IP or stealing your ideas and going and monetizing it. That can be frustrating. There's ways to look at it, and you can't handle it negative. I actually learned to embrace that kind of early on as well. If somebody ripped off one of my posts and got twice as much engagement, or ripped off one of my courses and basically republished it word for word and went and made money with it, I ended up embracing it, because somehow it always came back to that was my IP. You know, in the long run, everything comes back out in the light, right? At some point. And then it got to the point where people were reaching out to me and now offering to either pay me or give me credit for putting my content into their stuff. Like, you guys may have known, but there's a couple gurus. I'm not going to mention their names.
I've seen it.
Yeah, there's quite a few people that are like, hey, Ray, can you film these modules for my students program? I'll make sure you get credit, and I'll link your latest product, or I'll pitch your stuff to my audience, or they'll work out something fair. Like, that's all coming to But early on, I was getting stuff ripped off, and I had the negative aspect, mindset about it for a little while, probably 4 to 6 months. And then I was just like, fuck it. If people are ripping off my stuff, it's obviously good. And I always feel like they're never going to be able to do it as good as me. They might have the same framework or the same script, but they're not actually going to be able to teach it and implement it. Again, most of our clients are paying us for the implementation and the result. The information is out there. They can get it for free. They can pay for it. They can probably find it, but they're going to pay for the implementation.
Yeah, 100%. And Ray showed me one post one time. It is like you say, we're gonna keep them nameless here. But my point is, when you got some world name people taking your stuff, you definitely know that you've arrived. But my thing is, I believe, and I want to add to what Ray said, but not much, is that when you're that prolific, it really doesn't matter. Like it's going to take them a time to even get the resources to even properly engineer it out, if they even know which direction you were going in the first place. Everything success leaves clues. And that goes back into the original thing as far as IP when we first talked and started this conversation. So to me, it just makes sense to just be you, do you. Like I've gotten clients just from doing live demonstrations. And before we wrap up, Ray, that's the other offer that we have here. If you want to come on the show live with your IP and you want us to engineer it and work through it, we'll show you. Like, we don't care. Like Ray said, we got so much stuff. Like, I'm going to have to do the AI because he thinks I'm holding out. And we've had it for a long time, like at least almost a year. It's and I'm talking about this is stuff that you just really can't get because it's just like we like JP said, we're at the bleeding edge of a lot of this stuff, and we want to make sure that it works before we roll it out. So
always.
So we that's how we play. So I want to make sure that that anytime we're saying something, I do want you to challenge it. Don't believe a word I say. Go out there and test it, and then when you get the result, share your wins. That's it. That's all I care about. Because again, I want to build a real international community of vetted, trusted experts. That was always the purpose of New Room Collective. The money follows behind that type of high standard. We used to say when world class is a minimum standard, like it's true. That's it.
Yeah, and just to wrap things up, I mean, this conversation was good. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and it felt like, we were on here the last 10 or 15 minutes because it was just so seamless, and you and I always have a good time when we do this. This isn't work, you know what I mean? Yeah. But Fred's offer, and our offer, I should say, is a phenomenal one, guys. It's absolutely free. Like, come on. The only, prerequisite is you got to fit it into the 2-hour window we got blocked here. We're not taking like private time out of our day to go assess your business for free. But if you can come on with anything for us, show us freaking your copy, your landing page, your funnel, your sales calls, whatever, we'll review it, we'll break it down, we'll show you the gaps, and we'll give you what people pay us thousands of dollars to give you. Hop on and get some results with it. We always want these things to, I mean, there's no way there's only one, but let's just say at minimum, you picked one thing that really stuck with you. Go implement it into your business. Don't just learn it. Don't say, oh, that was great. Aha, Ray, I learned something new. Go implement it, because nobody's going to get results just consuming. You got to go create as well. 100%.
And that was a good comment too. People pay because of loyalty. All people in the same field grift off each other. It's personality. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'm getting goosebumps off that comment. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, because that's a good one. Yeah, that's really good. So, and again, guys, we're here to jam with you. I seriously love doing this. Me and Ray do have paying clients. So yeah, if you want to grift, who cares? we'll call it. Yeah, we're here to help. Seriously, happy to serve, because we have watched some amazing, miraculous transformations when you really take your intellectual property, get it to a certain way out there in the public, and you are really changing the world for the good, like straight up. Like, it's just nothing more satisfying to me to watch everybody out here really growing and being the most prolific we can. Because I'm telling you, man, when I had to up my game just this week, when you start seeing people who want to try to keep their name out there for thousands of years, like that's a whole different level of thinking. So ask yourself, I understand payroll is important. I understand making money is important, but literally when we're off this planet, like, what are you going to have that's a remnant of you? And that's the reasons why I've always said business isn't business, business is people. And we are in the people industry. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You need a human being. I mean, AI ain't going to swipe their card for you. And if they do, it's probably somebody else's money who they hack. So who knows?
Yeah, or it's a prepaid card that's not going to rebill next month. No.
Yeah, 100%. So guys,
all right, guys, I got to run here, Fred.
Yep, we're out. Much love, guys. If you need anything else, we'll chat with you soon. And peace.
Thanks, guys.
This is New Room Collective, where collapse meets clarity and leaders learn to speak in storms. No hype, no masks, just command-grade truth. Let's begin.